And it's also because the military serves a role to protect Americans, not to be used against Americans.
Exactly.
You keep saying used against Americans. What kind of Americans do you mean? The ones that are murdering us, carjacking us, raping us, terrorizing our cities? I mean, you're saying like he's creating an actual war against American citizens when what he's actually creating is a war against criminals and, by the way, illegal aliens who they are rounding up by the bucket load in Washington.
I want to let Ellie...
Of course politics is going on here. I mean, you said that they should be asking for federal resources, but that would be an admission that they have lost control of their cities.
That's
so
not losing
Brandon
control.
Johnson,
I mean,
Chris
no.
Craven, that would be an admission they've lost control.
The mayor of D.C. asked for federal resources too. She was
transparent. But Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, said, "I don't want more police," and he even said today, "We don't even want to put people in prison."
But this is what I'm telling you. I'm telling you that Democrats should think about potentially asking for more resources. What I'll say here is that,
I agree with you, but they won't.
But it's also not handing over the entire city to the federal government. What happens is that the mayor and the local law enforcement should be in charge, and they should have the federal law enforcement supplement and provide training as needed. It shouldn't be that the National Guard and federal law enforcement should take over a city that they do not understand, that they do not know, that the community doesn't understand. That just leads to chaos.
I mean, when you heard...
Boy. So we got to talk about President Trump getting his flowers for the crime crackdown in D.C., okay? Because there are some people who are honest enough to come out in public and admit that the crime crackdown is working, okay? And that this is a good thing for any liberal city, okay, that wants help cleaning up crime. And all of these liberal cities need help, okay? To be honest with you, all of them, if they were smart, would be begging the president for help cleaning up their city, okay? And President Trump, I think, is already setting a good example of how to do that. And it is, in fact, saving lives, right? It is saving lives. It is making Washington, D.C. safer, okay? And this is why, again, he's getting his flowers. People are coming out and praising him for making it safer for them to do basic things like go to work. And that's what happened in the White House as a reporter took the time to let President Trump know her own personal story dealing with crime in D.C. And again, thank them for his efforts. Take a look.
So more than 2 years ago, it was a Saturday morning in broad daylight. I was on my way to work, and a young man with a black ski mask pointed a gun at my face and threatened me to hand over my phone, my wallet, my laptop, and everything else. And when I refused, he used the butt of his handgun to strike me across the face, in the cheek, or what some people call pistol whip me, before running away. And that has deeply traumatized myself and my family. Ever since, I've never dared to walk in the street of DC at night, ever. And my family was extremely worried. So, Mr. President, thank you so much for what you're doing right now. Because
for being honest.
Such incidents involved not just me, but also my family. If he had shot me, I could have died right there in the middle of nowhere without my families or my friends knowing at the age of back then, I think 23.
Right.
Just starting my career here in DC without even starting a family. But now I'm very blessed to have this opportunity
So
to
you had a
stand
gun
before you.
pointed at your head, and you probably figured that he's going to pull the trigger because these are animals that don't know what the hell. They couldn't care less. The pulling the trigger to him is a very minor event, and I'm sure he's done it before. So how did you? And you did refuse to give it.
Correct.
Which would probably, maybe somebody would say that was not the right decision, right?
Right.
But
My
you
friends did
refused,
call
but I
me
understand
crazy
that.
afterwards.
And then he hit you real hard.
Yes.
It's really amazing that you weren't shot. That was.
I'm very blessed, and that's why having this opportunity to stand here to share my story today. One, I'm very grateful for God for allowing me to still survive to this day, but also to Mr. President. Thank you for now making DC safer
Thank you very much.
for us, for our families, for my parents, on my behalf of my parents, and now my baby on the way. Thank you so much.
And there are other reporters and journalists, good people, and you don't have to say it, but that have also been attacked violently. And not violently, too, but pretty badly.
Yeah, so if the mainstream liberal media and Democrats were honest, all of them would be telling the president the same thing, right? If they were honest, okay? If they were honest, if they could say out loud, okay, what Joe Scarborough claims they say behind closed doors, that is what they would be saying. But hey, I got to give credit where credit is due. There is one Democrat, Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., who is coming out and saying what Democrats won't say, which is to thank President Trump for the crime crackdown because the numbers have been spectacular.
And so I want to move on to share with you, and I know that there have been data shared throughout this period, and this is a chart. It's been it shows, and this is the type of categories that the chief reports to me on a weekly basis about what's happening in crime in the district. We've highlighted the area in yellow that shows the impact of the surge of FBI, DEA, ATF, and Park and Capitol Police and other federal agencies in the district. And the federal surge has had a significant increase on crime in Washington, D.C. And we greatly appreciate the surge of officers that enhance what MPD has been able to do in this city. The most significant thing that we are highlighting today is the area of crime that was most troubling for us in 2023. Now, we have driven it down over the last years, but I'm going to get my glasses so I can make sure I can see it correctly. But for carjackings, the difference between this period, this 20-day period of this federal surge and last year represents a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C. We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery go down, neighborhoods feel safer and are safer. So this surge has been important to us for that reason.
Wow. I got to give credit where credit is due. Right? She's playing it smart. Maybe she's acknowledging this because she doesn't want President Trump to completely take over D.C., right? But hey, regardless, she is just stating the facts, right? The facts, which is that, hey, apparently, according to the statistics that they gathered over the past week or so during the crackdown compared to the last few years or so, carjacking specifically down 87%. Which, I mean, that's an actual significant drop in crime, right? We're not talking about the 10 to 15% that Democrats like to brag about, right? 87%. That's how you do it, right? That's how fast crime should be falling, right? That's how much crime should be decreasing. We're not talking about 5, 10, it's down 5, 10% from an all-time high, right? That's what Democrats were talking about before. Trump comes in, and now all of a sudden it's down 87%? Which one would you rather have? Would you rather crime go down, right, by 5 to 10%, right, on a year-to-year basis, okay, which is what Democrats are bragging about from an all-time high? Or would you rather crime go down 87% from an all-time high, right? I mean, I'm just saying, which one would you rather have, okay? Democrats are trying to get credit for doing the bare minimum, okay? Doing the bare minimum. Well, crime is still high, but hey, it's not as high as it was a year ago. Okay, what you complaining about? I get an 87% drop. 87%. So, hey, it's working. And the reality is that a crime crackdown definitely needs to happen across the country, whether that be for the federal government, which is not preferable, right? I would prefer for the National Guard to not participate. But if they have to, and the Supreme Court says it's okay, fine, right? It is what it is. However, if these liberal cities can actually crack down on crime themselves, working in conjunction with the federal government, that'd be great as well too, right? Regardless, it needs to happen because a vast majority of the American people believe that crime is out of control in these liberal cities.
At the live desk, 536, a new poll by the Associated Press's Center for Public Affairs Research was just released, and it shows that President Trump's handling of crime is a new strength for the president. According to this new poll, this is a live look at the White House right now, Americans who aren't happy about the president's handling of issues like immigration and the economy tend to be more positive on his tough on crime approach. According to the research, 81% of Americans see crime as a, quote, major problem in large cities.
Which is why I'm not surprised that CNN found out the hard way that this is how the American people feel when they interviewed a black woman in Chicago, and the reporter clearly didn't get the answer that she was looking for.
My first reaction was that this is a good thing. I think that the governor as well as the mayor should be on board with it just so we can get a bit more of security in Chicago the way that we need.
The crime has dropped since 2024. Do you feel like the city feels safer?
No, not at all. No, especially with the police being defunded.
Boom. Is anybody surprised? Is anybody surprised? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all, because people who are actually living in these cities know that these cities are crime-ridden, right? They're crime-ridden, and they're not safe. They know this. Everybody knows this. But again, BS now, and the Communist News Network will keep telling you, oh, crime is down, and if you believe anything different, you're a white supremacist, you're a conspiracy theorist, right? This is what they say. This is what they say. But again, clearly, when you ask the American people how they feel about it, they tend to agree with Trump, right? They tend to agree with Republicans. They tend to agree with conservatives, okay? Because we're not making this up, okay? Like a lot of these crime statistics showing that crime is down, just made up, okay? So with that being said, President Trump is continuing with his crime crackdown, and I want to react to some of the latest developments because, again, we're going to see if this is coming to a liberal city near you, right? So let's get into it.
President Trump moving closer to expanding his crime crackdown beyond D.C. You're looking live at the White House this morning. The president again pushing to put National Guard troops in Chicago, Baltimore, and New York City, while threatening severe consequences for murders in D.C. News Nation's Tom Dempsey live in Washington for us this morning. So, Tom, good morning to you. What are you seeing there? What is the president saying as well?
Hey, Kelly, good morning. Well, look, this public safety emergency still has lots of federal law enforcement here in the nation's capital. And now, after a very long cabinet meeting inside the White House, President Trump saying he may want to start cracking down on crime in Chicago, and even without an invitation. But he hopes to be asked by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Take a listen.
I would have much more respect for Pritzker if he'd call me up and say, I have a problem. Can you help me fix it? I would be so happy to do it. I don't love... Not that I don't have the right to do anything I want to do. I'm the president of the United States. If I think our country's in danger, and it is in danger in these cities, I can do it.
You know, the crazy thing is that if Democrats are smart, they would ask the president to help, right? They would take that free federal help to crack down on crime in their city, and then they can say, hey, visit my city. My city's crime free, right? They can brag about their city being really safe. Okay, and that would probably help, right? It would probably help a lot in these liberal cities, right? I think Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., gets that. She gets the political aspect of all this, right? She understands from a political perspective that it's probably better for her to embrace this rather than to fight it. Because if she embraces it, what's the worst outcome? What's the worst outcome? Oh, crime goes down, right? Like, crime ain't gonna get worse because the National Guard is there. What's the worst case? Crime goes down. And if she stands against that, then she's going to be standing against making the city safer. It's going to look like she's pro-crime. So she's taking the right political position here, right? This is a very smart move on her part. All the other Democrats are playing it wrong. They're playing it incorrectly. They should be inviting the president. They should be jumping up and down to get some help fighting crime in their cities. The easiest way to increase your popularity, your approval rating as a politician, is to be tough on crime, right? Because people like to sleep at night believing that they're safe, right? People like to walk down the street, to go out, to enjoy life without having to worry about criminals, okay? People like that. They like that a lot, right? I don't understand why Democrats don't want to give that to their constituents. It would be an easy way, one of the easiest ways for Democrats to revive their dead party. But they're so stupid. They're so Trump deranged. They're so incompetent. They lack testosterone. They lack strong male leadership that none of them have realized that, you know, maybe, just maybe, from a political perspective, this may be what the Democrats need in order to revive their party if they actually crack down on crime in these liberal cities. Maybe this will help Democrats appeal to sane people. Sane people may say, hey, well, at least Democrats aren't soft on crime, right? Yeah, they might be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on a lot of social issues, but hey, when it comes to crime, they'll keep us safe, right? But you can't even say that. You can't even say that because Democrats have decided that apparently having safer cities is not a good thing, right? So, hey, it is what it is, but this is just another major mistake from Democrats.
During that same cabinet meeting, President Trump also described Baltimore as a hellhole. This came after both Pritzker and Maryland Governor Wes Moore pushed back against possible National Guard deployment in their states to help law enforcement prevent crime. President Trump also mentioned New York City as a possible target for a crime crackdown moving forward, but Governor Kathy Hochul of New York saying she recently spoke to President Donald Trump and said that current policies are working to bring down crime. Kelly?
All right. And Tom, the president also making a major announcement about D.C. crime. What's his proposed plan for murders in particular in the nation's capital?
Yeah, it was yet another big announcement during that cabinet meeting inside the White House, with President Trump saying he may push to bring back the death penalty for all murder cases here in Washington, D.C. Now, to peel this back a little bit and dive into some of the history regarding the death penalty in Washington, D.C., no criminal has been put to death in D.C. in nearly 50 years. The D.C. Council repealed the death penalty back in 1981, but President Trump saying he believes bringing it back will serve as a strong deterrent for violent crimes. This comes as D.C. recorded its first homicide in almost 2 weeks when a man was shot and killed early Tuesday morning. After spiking in 2023, D.C. saw homicide numbers decline in 2024, and this year's total marks a 15% drop from where things stood at the same time last year. D.C. Federal Attorney Jeanine Pirro saying that she plans to follow President Trump's directive, but whether or not a death penalty gets sentenced is ultimately up to a jury. Kelly?
So you seen that, you heard that. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with them bringing back the death penalty, even though I'm like here nor there on the death penalty, because I'm not entirely sure if death is a worse punishment than spending your life in solitary confinement, right? Which is what should happen to convicted murderers, right? They should spend their lives looking at four walls, eating gruel, okay, for the rest of their lives. I think that may drive somebody insane, and that actually could be worse than death. I don't know, okay? But regardless, I mean, hey, if the death penalty will deter people from committing crimes, then I'm all for it. But regardless, we already have the deterrence, right? Clearly, we know how to deter people from committing crime, and that means just putting more officers on the street, right? Putting more police on the street lowers crime, right? We're seeing that, okay? I mean, it's not hard, right? You didn't need all of the magical social funds and all these investments that woke Mayor Brandon Johnson is demanding. The best and fastest, quickest way to lower crime is to put boots on the ground, right? To put cops on the streets. And then guess what? Crime drops significantly, okay? This is not hard, right? This is not calculus, okay? This is not something that liberals should have a hard time understanding. But again, because they're so Trump deranged, because they're so cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in their ideology, because they simp for criminals so badly, this is where we're at, right? Where Democrats are literally standing against safer cities. The Democrat Party of the 90s will look at today's Democrat Party and they will be ashamed. They would be ashamed, okay? They would be in disbelief, right? They would say there's no way, there's absolutely no way that our party can become this insane, right? There's absolutely no way. But hey, here we are. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.